Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. So today I'm thrilled to talk to multi-talented 16-year-old adaptive athlete and musician, Giovanna Dubuque. Is that okay?
Yep.
Or Gio, or even Gia. I think I'm going to call her Gio today. Gio was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. She's a congenital amputee born without her left forearm and hand. She's passionate about the sport of paraclimbing. It came in first in the youth adaptive division at national championships 2 years ago. And this year came in second at national championships competing against adults. She's an accomplished violinist, started playing the violin in second grade, and she uses a prosthetic arm to hold the bow. Maybe you can give us a demonstration of that. She's also a junior in high school, likes math and science, and has plans to study engineering or international business in college. She travels the country speaking about disability, diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's passionate about environmental and social justice issues. She came out to the games in 2019. And I have to tell you, she sort of lit the place up. I felt like everywhere, always smiling, engaging, connecting with other athletes. And really what was special to me is connecting with athletes of all ages. And I have a feeling we're all going to be following her career for a long time. So welcome to the show, Gio.
Hey, how you doing today?
Doing well. All right. First question. What comes to mind when you hear the title of our show, Sports Saved My Life?
I have one thing to add before we go into that. I am missing my right forearm. No.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. What was the question again? So sorry. I had my mind on that.
It's all good. No, thank you for correcting me. What does this title of the show mean to you? Sports Saved My Life.
Sports Saved My Life. I mean, that really hits home. I was the type of kid who growing up, I was never really into any sports. My parents put me in everything imaginable because they really wanted to show me that having one hand wouldn't ever stop me, that I should never feel like my nub is a limitation. Yep. So they really tried to get me into sports. My father was a water polo player and a swimmer. My mom's a volleyball player. So they love sports. And I was their kid who I hated sports. Sports was not it. I was the type of kid who went inside and read a book, or I liked to draw or do my homework. I would do.
But were you like that even before you realized you didn't have an arm and maybe that made sports a little harder? Like that was just your DNA.
That was just me. Like I would have rather stayed inside just because I was.
Okay. But then at some point something changed.
Get ready for it. So there was one time where my mom goes to this gym and they had a 14-day free trial. I was like, why do you like working out? You're sweaty, you're gross, you're hot. Why would you enjoy that? I decided to go and I did my 14-day trial and I went every single day for like 6 months. I was obsessed. I completely got hooked. It was like a mixture of like weightlifting. It was like a...
Wait. How old were you when you did this?
I think I was about like 13.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, I was like getting a little bit older, right? Turning into a teenager. And I just got hooked. I was in love with it. It was a mixture of like cardio and strength training and the perfect mix for me.
All right. So you found it. You found it. And now look at you. And now
look at you. And it just kind of led to rock climbing. And I don't know. I don't know if I would have gotten as hooked to rock climbing if I hadn't had that experience of, oh, wow, like sports and working out, they can be fun.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So give me a one sentence description of yourself.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think about that. So, a one sentence description of myself. I just want to make change. I think that's the description of myself because a lot of my life has just kind of led to the fact that I want to create change on this earth. I want to do it some way, somehow. And I think my disability helps with that because I have that extra perspective that not a lot of people have. I can provide to the people around me saying, hey, having a disability isn't bad. Being disabled is not like a bad word. You can say it. You don't have to whisper. I think that it can be the type of serious thing like that, but also just fun. I want to be spontaneous. I want to have fun in my life. I want to constantly be changing and evolving because I don't ever want to stay the same. I want to be better than what I am today. Right. Does that make sense?
It's great. It's great. Okay. Let's dig into the childhood. I know you're still a child, but you're on your way to adulthood here. You've got some years under your belt. So talk to us about your upbringing and those early days and, kind of what were your parents like? What was the home environment like? Or what is it like?
So my parents, they didn't know that I was going to have one hand. It was the type of thing where I popped out and the doctors are like, hey, your kid seems to be missing a hand and part of her right forearm. And my parents were obviously kind of freaking out because they weren't expecting that. On the ultrasound, the doctor said, healthy baby, 10 fingers, 10 toes. And that was not true. So I come out, my parents are like, oh Lord, what's happening? And my mom has this moment of just like, she's perfect. And we're taking her home and she's my daughter and we're going to just figure this out. My parents decided that my upbringing was sort of going to be the type of like, nothing's ever going to stop you type of upbringing. And honestly, they really like drilled that into me. I grew up with a lot of confidence. My mom originally had brought me into a public school. And I remember I was there on like the first day and I was freaking out. I was not happy. I was like, oh my God, there are so many children.
That was, you remember, is a kindergarten you remember going into public school?
Yes. And after that first day, my mom saw me just like frozen, panicking because kids were whispering, kids were pointing. And it was the type of thing where I think that was the first time in my life. It's a little bit hazy, but I can't remember any time before that not feeling confident.
Yeah.
So my parents actually had put me into a smaller school. And at that smaller school,
hold on. Right away? Or did you do kindergarten and then?
No, it was kind of right away. I was like, my parents were like, we don't want to expose her to that first. My parents decided that they would put me for 2 or 3 years in a small school and then put me in a bigger school so that I could build my confidence up first and like be okay with having one hand and talking to groups. And it turns out that I essentially went over to the other classrooms and talked to the other kids about my hand, So my confidence just skyrocketed being at a smaller school.
So from the smaller school, you went back to the public school to do that, or you just did that in the smaller school setting?
I did that in the smaller school. What we found that in the smaller school, my confidence skyrocketed because that was a way to expose me to smaller groups of kids and get used to the reactions that they were going to have. Yeah. Because what happened at the beginning was that I walked into a classroom filled with 60 children and everybody had a reaction and I was the center of attention. And as a 5-year-old, I was not like happy with that. And my parents noticed and they took action.
That's incredible. So I have a little side story for you. So my wife and I essentially came to the same conclusion about Ezra, and we came to it by interviewing amputees in their young adult years, teens into young adults. And we felt like those from smaller towns were way more self-confident. Now, everybody kind of gets to a self-confidence and a self-acceptance at some point, but we felt like those from the smaller towns got there earlier in life, and often actually got there at some point in high school, which is really nice if you can find that in high school and kind of, have a better high school experience. And so we only looked at private K through 12 schools for our son Ezra to what we say is approximate a small town. Mm-hmm. And so that's really cool that your parents were so aware of this, and sort of monitoring, it's really your energy and your reaction to what you were, feeling there. So that's great. And so talk to me a little bit about their parenting style and strategy. So you mentioned earlier that they didn't really limit you.
No, yeah. Me and my mom are really, really close. So the second that she saw my face, she immediately was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. My mom is definitely the take charge type of mama bear.
You're back to the school moment now. You're talking to the school moment?
Yes, that was
okay.
The little side part.
Yeah.
We're on to your question.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
My mom is the type of like mama bear, take charge type of person. It was the type of thing where every time that I was growing up, ever since that school moment, their parenting style just kind of stayed the same. It was the type of thing where I came to them with my experiences, and I was a very curious child, and I still am today. I just have that like natural curiosity about everything. I like learning. And I would just come up to them, and I'd come up to them with like my experiences. Hey, someone said this on the playground. What do I say back? And they would be like, I don't know. What do you want to say back? Like they really let me figure out things for myself. And anytime that I asked help, they would provide it. But they realized very early that I was a very independent human being. And I really enjoyed like taking care of myself. It was the type of thing where I would tell them like, hey, this happened. And they would be like, okay, what do you want to do about it? Like, would you like our help? Do you want to handle it yourself? And my answer was, I'll handle it myself.
Okay.
Let you know.
So your parents sound kind of amazing.
I think so.
And listen, being a parent is not that easy. It sounds like they sort of like had the secret manual to this. So where do you think your parents got their ethos and their parenting style and strategy? Like what was because they seem really nuanced. Are there older siblings? So they kind of made all the mistakes with some older siblings. Like how did they get to this place?
So my mom's the middle child and my dad's the youngest child. I honestly think, and they've admitted this to me, that they were confused. They didn't know what to do. It was I'm the oldest. So it was their first time parenting a child, much less a child with an amputation. So it was like, they were just kind of going for it. My mom and dad have both admitted that it was a scary time. They didn't know what was happening. They reached out to Lucky Finn Project, and they reached out to a bunch of certain like organizations just asking for help and saying, hey, what do we do? And of course, they listened to everybody and listened to their stories and whatnot. But they kind of made the decision that like, hey, we're going to figure it out. But they were obviously scared and had no idea what they were doing. But I mean, something must have gone well.
No, you're a lovely young lady. So they've done an incredible job. Okay, so talk a little bit about the siblings. Do you have siblings?
Yes. So my father I have two stepbrothers. They're a lot older than I am. And then they're in their 30s. And then I have a younger brother. His name is Fabian. He is 9 years old. He's turning 10 in like a week. So yeah, he's my younger brother.
And what's your dynamic with him?
Well, he's definitely my younger brother. So we definitely argue a lot, but it's all in love. We're both very like physically like touchy people. So like me and my family are generally just like that. We're Latino, so it's part of our culture.
Latino from where? What's the background?
Both of my parents are from Venezuela. My dad is from Maracaibo, which is kind of, how do I explain this? It's a town near a lake. That's how I explain it. And then my mom, she's from Caracas. She is from the capital city.
She's the big city girl.
Pretty much.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay. So did you ever, you're still 16, so there's still an opportunity, but did you ever get in trouble?
I would like to say that I was always a good child and I did not often get in trouble growing up. I think I did one time because I like interrupted a teacher too many times. Like I said, I was always like the curious learning child. So I don't know. I got in trouble like once. I remember I had to sit out during recess, but it was in second grade and that was kind of it.
And you never have gotten in trouble with your parents?
With my parents? Yeah, definitely so. Probably because I didn't clean my room after like the 20th time that they told me. Let's see. I promise you, I am not a slob. I do clean up after myself. It is just like a daily occurrence. Like it has to be done daily because I do often I get home from school and then 5 minutes later I'm going to the climbing gym. So what do? I like randomly run into the shower. I'm like taking off my clothes and then I run back into my room, get all my clothes. I'm like, we're leaving. And then suddenly we have to leave. Now, do I remember leaving clothes all over the house? Yes, I do. Did I have time to pick them up? No, I didn't. So what did I do? I did not pick them up.
You sound like every teenager.
Okay. I mean, you're wrong.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You're normal. You're normal. Okay, what's like a favorite memory of your childhood so far?
A favorite memory of my childhood?
Yeah. Because you're a good kid. You're a good kid. You don't clean your room. That's fine. But like, give me something, that family trip or that moment on the playground where you were Superwoman. I don't know. Give me like.
I loved Disney as a kid. So like favorite memory from when I was like probably like 10 and younger, Disney is up there. Like I went there like maybe 3 times. And every single time I was absolutely obsessed. And I still am now. I just haven't been in 10 years. But I love Disney and that is very much up there. I also apparently kept taking naps in Disney. Like we would get there and then like 2 hours in, I'd be napping because I was young. So I was just like, okay, time to pass out. And then I'd be up in an hour.
But it's sort of like, you're in your ultimate dream. So why not just enjoy it and take a little nap?
Oh yeah. But yes, getting autographs from the princesses. That was so up there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your disability. So did the doctors explain why you were born without your hand?
Yeah.
What did they tell your parents? And then maybe talk about your journey of just dealing with adapting and prosthetics and all that. Because I know the arm amputees have a really different relationship with prosthetics than the leg guys.
Yeah. So, okay, so we'll get the first part of that. They explained to my parents that I was born with amniotic band syndrome. Okay. And I was, that was just kind of it. I don't know how long it took them to tell my parents that. I'm pretty sure they like took me to a couple of specialists when I was just like a newborn, just out of curiosity, like what happened. And they told us that. And I do remember when I was young, like probably 3 years old, I went to this like physical therapy place just because they had told me that everybody's born with like they're naturally left-handed or naturally right-handed, right? I was born naturally right-handed. So I would like try and grab stuff with my nub and I would like try and pick things up. And obviously half the time it didn't work. And so my like pediatrician recommended to my parents, they were like, well, she's going to have to like learn how to use her left hand, take her to see PT and help her work on her dexterity, because I was still like 3 years old trying to use my nub.
Can I just tell you a quick story?
Go for it.
That experience is exactly the same as our experience with Ezra.
Oh yeah?
His left hand was different. He only had one finger on the left hand. And he was that was the dominant hand when he was little, he'd put his pacifier back in his mouth with his left hand. I mean, he did so many things with this little left hand. And so we had exactly the same challenge. So isn't that fascinating that the limb that's different happens to be the one that's dominant, which is like so counterintuitive. Okay, cool. So you worked through that. You got some physical therapy.
Yep. I mean, I didn't do it for long. Like I saw them for like maybe like a month and a half, and then they were like, "Yeah, no, she's fine. Take it."
Like you're gonna have to figure this one out. This is not. Yeah.
But I'm definitely like a right kicker. Like my right leg is a lot smarter than my left leg. Also because they definitely like told my parents, "Hey, all the like nervous and electrical signals that are supposed to be going to her hand, the body has a natural tendency to make your feet like your backup. So you know how people with like no arm, or like
have amazing feet.
Have amazing feet.
Yeah.
Same thing with people who have maybe not people who have like a hand difference, but definitely people who don't have a hand at all. Those signals just go. So I have one very, very talented foot, and then the other one's like normal. So,
but you know what though? What's cool about that, which I've never heard that. So that's you just taught me something. But it's kind of like that for life in general. So, for example, people that might have a stutter or they're dyslexic, other things have to be better.
Yes.
To compensate. And so it is maybe it's sort of a neurological and biological phenomenon that we do adapt as human beings. Our bodies adapt, our brains adapt. We figure these things out. So that's really cool. I actually didn't know that about the nervous system. And it's really, really cool. Okay. So did your parents in those early days ever think that something else went wrong, or were they you were given kind of a clean bill of health? It's just a missing part of an arm. There's nothing else to worry about? Because that was a little bit of our stress.
Yeah. So I think it was definitely like my mom. I remember her telling me this right around when I went to Angel City Games, and she was kind of like talking about like my story and how she felt when I was born. And I do clearly remember her saying, she was like, at first we didn't know. It took them probably a couple months to get the amniotic band syndrome name just out there.
Just to get a diagnosis, right?
Just to get a diagnosis. So she was like, oh my God, was it my fault? Like, did my body do something wrong that ended up? And obviously it wasn't her fault. No one can like really prevent that type of thing from happening. But she definitely, there was a lot, I don't want to say there was a lot of fear, but there was a lot of uncertainty for what had happened when I was a baby. Because the thing is that nobody like visits you in the hospital, sees that your kid has one arm, and then is like, hey, everything's fine, everything's cool. Like the doctors are just kind of there to be like, okay, kid has popped out, make sure their lungs are working, make sure everything is working, and here you go. You know, when you have an amputation, that is just like, there's nothing emergent about it. So I don't know. I definitely do remember my mom like saying that she didn't know, and that she was scared that she had done something wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's a really common reaction. We were blessed to get our diagnosis before we left the hospital.
Oh, cool.
So by day 3, there was a geneticist on staff that kind of helped figure that out for us. And then we got some great wisdom from an orthopedic surgeon, we followed his prescription to a T, which was really valuable, because I think that you don't always get that, to your point. Sometimes it's just general health stuff, pat them on the back, send them home. And then parents are like, what? You know, what do you do? Okay. Talk to me about prosthetics and what is your journey there?
So when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I went to kindergarten, and I had this friend, and she started playing the violin. Now, in that same week, I had saw this guy, his name's Adrian and Antoine, and he has like a nub like I do. Maybe he has it a little bit longer. He might have like a little bit of a wrist, but he plays the violin, and he uses like a prosthetic as well, I believe. And I saw his video in the same week. Now, seeing my friend play the violin, I had asked her to hold it and I had asked her like to see. And obviously I was super curious. I was like, I really like this instrument. It's like almost fragile. Like I'm supposed to drop it, but it also like sounds super, super pretty. And once I saw that he had done it, I was like, well, now why can't I? So me, 5, maybe 6 years old, I go up to my parents and I'm like, I want a violin. And they're like, what? Like, what? What? And I asked for a violin to Santa that year. And he had written me a note back being like, okay, we're going to figure this out. So me and my parents went to a violin shop called The Violin Shop in Charlotte. And we met with people there, and it was the type of thing where they were like, okay, she's going to need something to be able to hold the bow. We went to Shriners Hospital down in South Carolina, and we tried to figure it out. And I don't know what it was. I think the prosthetic, it didn't have a working enough like wrist. It didn't have a wrist that worked well with the movements of the violin. So we were like, okay, we're going to need to find a wrist. So we go back to the violin shop and we're like, hey, does this work? And they were like, no, it needs a different wrist. Okay, cool. We'll go somewhere else. We went to Hanger Clinic. We were like, hey, we need a wrist. We need a prosthetic that has length and a wrist. And they were like, okay. Hanger Clinic was across the street from the violin shop. So that was it was the type of thing where we went to the violin shop. We were like, hey, does this work? They were like, no. And they were like, actually, go across the street. There's a place that says prosthetics right there. Went across the street and found it. And we worked it out with Hanger Clinic to find a prosthetic that works well for me. Once we had the whole prosthetic thing, then we went back to the violin shop and we're like, hey, I need a teacher. I need a teacher who is like willing to work this out with me, because it's the type of thing where I go to school and I sign up for American Sign Language class, which is typically a 2-handed thing. And I kind of like, just, okay, I'm in this class now. Sorry. That's just how it is. But because I'm going to figure it out myself. But when I was younger, it was the type of thing where I have to have someone else to help guide me. I know nothing about the violin. And we found my teacher, Glenn. Glenn is awesome. And
he's still your teacher now.
Yeah, he's still my teacher now. It's been around like 10 years.
No way.
Yeah. So here's the thing though, with my prosthetics, as a child grows. So we would need a new prosthetic every like 2 years, because not only is it the type of thing where I grew to a point where I couldn't fit my nub into the socket. It was also the type of thing where I needed to have the exact same length to match my other hand, to match my other arm. So I would play like for like 2 years, and then I'd have to take like 1.5 to 2 years off to then fundraise for another prosthetic and then fit another prosthetic.
So this is the same thing as a running blade, which is insurance doesn't cover these things.
No. Insurance doesn't cover these things. Actually, we definitely like put out a couple forms, and it was the type of thing where it kind of got denied. That's just the way that it is. They got placed under the cosmetic category because here's the problem with having a disability. Systematically, it is seen as we get the bare minimum. For a kid that has one leg, you can probably fill out an insurance form and they'll give them a walking leg. But if you try and fill out one for a running blade, it is seen as cosmetic.
For sure. No, well, it's unnecessary.
Unnecessary because, but here's the thing. A kid has every right to run as much as the next person.
Or play the violin.
I have as much right to play an instrument as any other kid in my class. The problem is that I'm going to need a prosthetic to use it. And there's a systematic it's like it's not, there's not that systematic connection where we have that bridge of the empathy and the social and the political like policy to bring.
It's all, you're right. It's all policy. It's all bad healthcare policy. And to some extent, we've delegated that to the states. So the feds don't really have a big role. I mean, they have a role, but they don't tell the states exactly what to do from healthcare policy. So it's different state by state, which is sort of maddening as an amputee. In fact, I know a lawyer as part of our community who does prosthetic reimbursement cases against insurance companies, but he only is, he's only got his bar. He's only on the bar in a couple states in the country, and every state is different. So it's really tricky. But do you remember how much it costs for one of those fancy arms?
That's a great question. Okay, it's in between like $20,000 and $40,000.
Oh my gosh, that's more than a running leg. Dang.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It has a specialized wrist. So it has a ball and socket. And just the thing is that what we would do is that we would like repurpose the parts. We would repurpose the wrist.
And just rebuild the socket, basically.
And they would rebuild the socket.
Yeah.
So
it's not that bad every 2 years, but yeah.
But it's still a lot. But I do remember like the original. I remember looking at a receipt on like my dad's desk, and it was something in between that. It was
Okay. So your music career has had to go like this, depending on the availability of that prosthetic arm. Is it in use now?
Yes. So I have this one. It's gorgeous. It has sparkles on it, and the covering on top of it is like a galaxy. So it has like constellations, and it has like stars and suns, but like the original type of like painter's sun, where I'd have a face and it'd have all these squiggly lines, and I love it. Anyways, I'm using it now. It's great because it's around maybe a foot long. And I remember my original was for like 4 or 5 inches long. It's adorable putting them next to each other because I have.
And you may be fairly close to your adult size, so you maybe don't need to do another prosthetic arm.
Yeah, I think I'll probably need one more. This one's a little small for me. It's very much usable, but it would be uncomfortable in a couple years. So I'll probably get one more, and that'll be my last one.
Okay. What do you like more, playing violin or climbing?
So I think that both of them, I think it's very difficult because having that with the up and downs of the music career has been up and downs in motivation, because it's very difficult for me to play the violin and then not play for 2 years and then suddenly have my parents pining over me, being all like practice every day when I've had the last 2 years of not doing anything, And of course I love the violin, but I think it holds a different place in my heart than climbing does.
Yeah.
I think climbing I have more of a raw passion for. It's the type of thing where it's my outlet. I need it. I enjoy it. Competitions are like everything to me. There's a whole community behind it. For me, it more tailors to what I love. Of course, I love them both, but I hold them different places in my heart.
Well, and I will tell you, I'm a fan of rock climbing. I'm kind of scared of it, so I don't really do it. But I feel like a really good rock climber is almost like a really good musician. There's almost a musical quality to the way they move and the way they conquer challenges. And it's just breathtaking. I'm really a fan of the sport of climbing. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. Something about climbing, I completely fell head over heels over it.
Okay, we're gonna get into the sports journey in a second, go deep into climbing, but I want to, before we leave disability and kind of childhood, I want to hear your thoughts on. We've talked a little bit about your, call it, self-confidence, self-acceptance journey, and it sounds like your parents were a big part of that. Obviously, very aware of your emotional state in kindergarten, which is really cool. What has that journey been like for you? And have there been moments where you were, kind of lower moments from a sort of self-confidence standpoint. I mean, a junior high can be hard. High school can be hard for God's sake. So like where are you in that journey, and kind of what were those highs and lows along the way?
So I think that, like I said before, I've definitely been a very independent person, very like confident. My parents obviously helped with that. I don't know. I think that my standpoint on this is that my disability is not who I am. It is part of me. It is part of my identity, but I am not the one-handed girl. You know, I'm just like a girl who happens to have one hand, who has a bunch of qualities other than her hand. I think that that's just kind of how I've thought about it for my entire life. I've had friends, I've had like people that have just almost forgotten that I've had one hand. Like I was reading a book one time, and my friend was reading a book right next to us, and we're book nerds. So we were sitting there reading, and I was like doing something with my hand, and I was like, gosh, I can't flip the page. And she was like, just flip the page with your other hand. And I was like, girl, I can't flip the page with my other hand. She was like, why not? Just do it. And she looked at me with this almost fear in her eyes. It was hilarious. She forgot I had one hand. The type of thing where we were best friends for so long that she like unconsciously didn't even see me as having one hand. She just saw me as me. So it was hilarious. We sat there crying, tears in our eyes, laughing for like 5 minutes because it was just hilarious. And I don't know, I feel like that really represents like my like stance on it. Obviously, there are times where when I was younger, I probably, if you had asked me, hey, would you rather have two hands? I would have probably like seen the violin, seen the prosthetics, seen the whole like thing and been like, yes. And like at the moment, honestly, as I got older and as I really realized about how proud I am of my disability and how it might not be like my definer, like my definition as a person, but it is something that is a huge part of who I am. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's something that I think has given me perspective. It has given me connections. It has brought me to so many people who I never would have met if I hadn't had one hand. And I will tell you, I am not sure if I ever would have started rock climbing if I hadn't had a disability, because I started through Catalyst Sports, which is, and I learned about rock climbing at a hanger clinic. Like everything just goes on.
All right, we're gonna dig into sport in a second. So the other thing that I hear a lot, and I believe, is having a disability, you see the world differently, and I think you see the world through a more kind or empathetic lens. And I know even just in my journey, I wasn't in this space until 16 years ago. And I know I am a kinder, more empathetic soul on this planet, having been just part of this. So that's another I love how you frame what it gives you. And it's really powerful. Okay, before we leave disability, what do you tell the parents of a congenital amputee? Right out of the chute, you can run over to the hospital and talk to them before they go home. They don't have a diagnosis. They're same place your parents were. What do you tell them?
My first thing would be like, this is such a gift, because I think an able-body's perspective to a disability most of the time is a disability is seen as a bad thing. That is the stigma that is around the word disabled. When you have that little chart that the doctors are going to fill out, they're going to write something about a disability. And if an able-bodied person could see that, they'd be like, oh no, we have a child that is disabled. That's in the South, you hear people say it all the time. God bless your heart. Oh, I am so sorry for you. And you're like, I'm telling you, I'm trying to like say that this is a gift. This is so good. My life.
Let's take a quick break to learn more about the equipment loaner program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
Okay, so let's talk about sports. You mentioned that experience at the gym when you were 13, where you kind of took working out more seriously, which sounds great. And then you also mentioned that at a hanger clinic event, you got introduced to rock climbing. And so talk to me a little bit about that moment and, kind of what happened in that day. And then kind of how did your career progress from there?
So I started working out in March, right? It was August. It was either late August or early September, where I went in for a fitting and to fill out an insurance form for a Violin prosthetic.
Gotcha.
Now, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is it's in the same city as the U.S. National Whitewater Center. Now, that used to be the Olympic training spot for whitewater kayakers, Olympic whitewater kayakers. And I love that place. I grew up with that place. It's very local, outdoorsy. And I'm telling you, I did not enjoy the outside. But when I would go to the Whitewater Center, it just didn't seem as bad. It seemed fun. There were zip lines, obstacle courses. I was always a fan of the obstacle courses. On the form, they asked, what do you like to do outside? I listed the Whitewater Center because I had nothing else. I was not a fan of anything else. So I was like, yeah, I like to work out and go to the Whitewater Center. That's it. And they were like, okay, cool. Randomly sparked up a conversation. What do you specifically like at the Whitewater Center? And this wasn't for the form. This was just us talking. Talking to Mark, which is my prosthetist.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I love the rock climbing there. I love the obstacle courses and the rock climbing. He was like, we have a guy who rock climbs. He brings in this guy who works there, who's the technician. He's the one who makes the legs and the arms. And his name is Aaron. He was my rock climbing partner for a year and a half, 2 years. We ended up being super great friends. He took me to the rock climbing gym maybe 2 weeks after that. Around that time, it was my birthday. So at the rock climbing gym, they give you a free day pass. If you're not a member, they give you a free day pass where you can go for the day. And I'm telling you, I went for the first time and I couldn't get it out of my head. I was at school because it was September and my birthday is in early October. So I spent the entire month just thinking about it. I had so much fun. The ambience at the place was amazing. And I'm telling you, the second I got that day pass, I went. That weekend, I flew to New York for the first time. And I went to a No Barrier Summit.
Okay.
And I met Karima Batts, who's the founder of the team that I joined that December. So everything was happening crazy fast. I was trying to get to the rock climbing gym as much as I could. Once I had met her, she was like, hey, no, here's this thing. If you like rock climbing, here's a group. I would love for you to be on it. And I'm telling you, me and Karima, I love her so much. I just got off the phone with her yesterday. We talk all the time.
What's the name of the team that she has?
Adapt Climb Group.
Okay,
it's an East Coast based team, but they serve all around the US. And they cover expenses that are really difficult to handle as an adaptive climber, because that's just it. Anyways, I got on the team in December And that March, I competed at my first nationals. And that was 2019, where I won youth nationals. And it was insane. I had competed at one competition before that. It was in February. It's this yearly competition at Rockville Earth Treks in Maryland.
Sure.
And I can still go to it today. I love that competition. And it just opened so many like doors to the community for me. That's just how I started rock climbing.
And so you found adaptive climbing pretty quickly. Prior to that, had you done amputee camps? Did you do any amputee events? Did you know there was just amputees everywhere doing all kinds of cool things?
Nope, not at all. I feel okay. So my parents had definitely like looked things up when I was like gone on Google and looked up amputee camp or something like that when I was younger, but never really a part of things like that. You
kind of knew things were out there, but you hadn't.
I didn't know if there were groups or there were like communities and that, you would make friends and everything was intertwined. And then suddenly I go to New York with no barriers and there are so many people there and they are so cool. And I found this girl and she had the exact same arm as I did, but on the other side. And we still talk today. Like I was not exposed to that type of like community before. And I went once and I was in love. Like now I actively look for things like that. I actively looked for Angel City Games and I was like, I want to go so badly because I want to meet people. I want to create those connections that really just lead to lifelong friendships.
Yeah. Well, listen, I said it in the intro. You were like this fireball at the games in 19. I mean, I felt like every venue I walked into, you were there and you're connecting to people and you really brought a lot. And I really appreciate that. I mean,
thank you.
What we try to, all of our programming, we try to make it really a safe place for new athletes. And, having an athlete like you that's kind of already started your career in competing and is just brings that self-confidence and the love for what we do really helps, kind of shape that culture. So you were really great to have out last 2 years ago. I can't believe it's 2 years ago. Yeah. Crazy that it's 2 years ago. Okay. So explain the sport of adaptive climbing or paraclimbing. If you're going to make it in the Paralympics, you have to have some sort of classification system at some point. And I know a little bit about it, but like talk to me about all the different types of disabilities that are able to do climbing, because it's pretty cool. And I don't think people appreciate how inclusive climbing is in the disability world.
Yeah. So kind of the way that climbing works in general is that we have really 3 disciplines that are part of the Olympics. They are speed climbing, sport climbing, and bouldering. So there are the tall walls and short walls and the tall walls, but there is a specific route that you go up and it's the same route that you train on. With bouldering and sport climbing, it's different routes. So you really are like pushing yourself and you have to think about what you're going to do because it's new. You've never seen it.
Yeah. You don't get to practice the route.
Yes. So the point of sport climbing and bouldering is you're trying to get to the top, whereas the point of speed climbing is trying to get to the top as fast as you can. So that's why it's called speed. Now, when we talk about paraclimbing, we really only we compete nationally and internationally on sport climbing, on tall walls. We don't do bouldering or speed climbing. We have local bouldering competitions like the one in Maryland.
Okay.
But we compete in just the tall walls with the ropes. So the way that our classification works is that we have 5 categories and then we have youth. We have visual impairment, upper extremity, lower extremity, neurological, and seated. So each one of them, like I am an AU2 because AU is the upper extremity, and then let's see, AU1 is above the elbow, AU2 is below the elbow. So depending where your amputation and difference is, you would be categorized in a certain like subset or subcategory. And so you have your RPs, RP1, 2, and 3. That is neuro, depending on how limited you be. You get classified into those categories. I just heard that the Olympic classification would be a little bit different than our like national or international like classification right now, but I'm pretty sure that it's only like the names. Like instead of being like RP2, it might be like IU3, something like that. It's just the labels that are different.
You said Olympic, but you meant Paralympic.
Paralympic.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. Okay.
And then we have youth. Youth is competing against all the abilities. So I competed when I was in youth. I competed against a leg amputee and a blind girl and someone with CP. And youth, since we don't have as many numbers, we really just group them all together.
Yeah. So cool. Okay, so talk about the future of your climbing career. What are your goals going forward?
So definitely my goal is to go to the World Championships and podium, hopefully at first, as always. But I would really, really like to go to a World Championship. This year, I had the opportunity to go, but it got really difficult because of COVID and because the invitation is sent very close to the date. So my family didn't really have the chance to
fundraise and
fundraise, get ready for, get the visa, have everything ready. So my goal is definitely to go to World Championships. This October, I'm going to a World Cup. I'm really, really excited for that. It is the US's first only paraclimbing World Cup. And this is the first year where we have World Cups in general. And this is the only World Cup where it's only paraclimbers.
And where is that going to be held?
In Los Angeles.
When?
So, October 9th and 10th.
Awesome. All right. We'll see you out there.
Oh, yeah. So I'm very, very excited. I think that like my long-term goals for rock climbing is I would love to be a paid athlete for rock climbing. I feel like that would take off like not necessarily the stress, but it would reduce the stress of having to fundraise for each of my competitions. I wouldn't have to worry about whether I could go to an international competition or not now that I qualify, because this year and last year they're the first years that I could qualify. My first year of rock climbing, I was youth, and we don't have youth international competitions. It's only national. So I feel like long term, it was the type of thing where I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, if you could become a professional climber and not do anything else, would you? And I had to think about it. And I'm not 100% sure I would, because choosing in between the rest of my life, like my studies, I would love to go to college and get a job after that, and intern somewhere and make change. I feel like only choosing rock climbing and denying the rest of that in like my personality, my identity, is like I'm denying the part of me that wants to make change. Now, goal, definitely want to do rock climbing stress-free. I would love to be like supported by companies in the type of way where I can travel and rock climb and just have fun.
And you're doing it part-time right now anyways, because you're a full-time high school student. So there's no reason why you can't accommodate college and a career and continue to climb. I mean, at some point there might be so much money in it that, these full-time climbers knock you off the podium or something, but who knows? It reminds me a little bit of, and I've told the story on the show before, but when I was about your age, a little younger, I wanted to be a pro skateboarder. And my dad very wisely says, that's a great goal. Why don't you go to college as well?
There you go.
So I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. And it was good advice because I gave up on the the pro skateboarding career pretty quickly after that, and ended up going to college. So it's all good. Okay, give me, just because I know you're passionate about changing the world and making an impact. What does, at the end of your career, you're retiring, 60, 70, 80 years old, depends on how long you want to work. What have you accomplished in life?
That's a great question. Okay, so when I think about that, the first thing that comes to mind is I want to look back on my life and know that I'm happy. I want to look back on my life and know that, if I look back on rock climbing, I want to know that I loved it as much as I could and that I did everything to pour my entire soul into it. Mm-hmm. That I had college friends and that I went out and I, had fun and did well at school, because that's important to me. I think that is, I feel like if I were to look back, I would have wanted to, yeah, sure, have accomplishments, but only if those accomplishments were to have made me happy.
That's very wise.
Huh. Thanks.
Because a lot of us we get on the treadmill of life and we get very focused on accomplishments, and it often comes at the expense of happiness and relationships and health.
Yeah. So, at that point, it's the type of thing where I wouldn't, if I would have to trade my happiness for an accomplishment, then it just wouldn't feel like an accomplishment anymore for me.
I think there's going to be a lot of adults listening to this that need to learn that lesson. So that's really good. Okay, we're moving into soul searching. And before we go deep, give me a fun or interesting fact about you that I don't know.
A fun or interesting fact about me that you don't know. Let's think. Okay, I have two that are like lingering in my mind. Can I just go with those?
Yeah.
Okay, I randomly really, really want to get into archery. Just like for some odd reason. I did it when I was younger. It was the only sport that I enjoyed out of like all the 100.
Did you do archery at the games when you came out?
I flew in like 4 hours after you guys had the clinic.
Okay, gotcha.
And then what's the other one? Oh, I love cats. I have a cat named Miles. He's amazing.
Yeah, show us a picture.
Yeah, this is my. I love him so much. I'm a cat lover, and I randomly want to try archery. That's it. Those are
all right. We can definitely help you with archery piece. That's exciting, and it's good to know that you're a cat person.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what has your disability taught you?
I think my disability has taught me to almost take things slow, because I think of things as almost a reaction. It has taught me to definitely be more empathetic, but not react explosively, if that makes sense. It is what I'm trying to say is that it's taught me how to be respectful and kind in a social manner, if that makes sense. Because you will always have a kid who walks up to you and is like, "Mommy, what happened to this girl's hand?"
Yeah.
And sure. Of course, my first reaction is, I want to tell them all about how I have one hand, how it's cool and I can do everything that they can do. But sometimes you don't get that reaction out of like their parents. A lot of things that I commonly see is that their parents will like kind of almost like tug them away and be like, "Shh, don't say anything." And I'm like, why not? Let them say something. Get that natural curiosity. And it's such a blessing that they do, because they don't see disability as a bad thing. But the second that their parents might be, "Oh no, that's offensive," that's the moment where they start realizing, if I see a girl with one hand, I'm never going to say anything again. Or if I see a guy in a wheelchair, I'm not gonna ask, because when disability should be something that we can openly talk about. Yeah. So I think that what my disability has taught me is that like sometimes if someone is being a bit ignorant and someone says something offensive, to really take a deep breath, because chances are I'm the first person with a disability that they probably ever knew. And I have the ability to not change their mind, but deepen their perspective on it. So
it's like there's an opportunity to sort of chip away at that stigma, whatever's going on in their head. That's nice. I think it's connected to something that I think about a lot, which is just assuming positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always sound like it's positive intent, but oftentimes there's not a negative intent behind it. It's usually it's usually ignorance, lack of awareness or something. So, okay. What would you say are one or two lightning bolt moments for your life? So I view this as I was going this direction. I thought I was supposed to be going here, and bam, this happened, and I ended up going this direction.
I think the first time that I stepped into the gym.
Mm-hmm. With your mom, with the 2-week pass or whatever that was.
Yeah. So I think those are the two of them. I had one of them where it was the weightlifting gym and it was the 2-week pass, and the other one where it was the climbing gym. Both of those experiences were so different that they really put me on track. And I still view my weightlifting and my CrossFit whole shenanigans as something completely different than rock climbing. Because I don't know, I feel different. It's the type of thing where the communities are different. I love them both. But one of them, it's like when I walked into the gym, it was something that was so new and something so exciting. Something that it really taught me about my body. It really taught me that I am strong and powerful. And obviously I knew that before, but it was the type of thing where I was always focused on my brain. Yeah. I was always curious.
You knew it intellectually maybe, but you hadn't felt it physically by really being that active, right? It's different. And once you get the chemicals flowing and the body moving, it's different.
Yes, it really I figured it out right as I was getting ready for my finals. So I was super, super stressed, and it really gave me that sigh of relief. And then when I went into the rock climbing gym, I didn't think of it as a physical thing. It was just that pure, raw passion that I never felt before with anyone. It was something, I wasn't going there to feel better physically. I was going there because this random little thing in my head was why aren't you at the gym? How fun would it be if you could be at the rock climbing gym? Rock climbing is so fun. It was just, I was so set on it that I didn't even understand why.
Well, my guess is your success in rock climbing is actually interdependent with your time in the gym and workouts and weights and CrossFit and all that stuff, because you've just improved your strength, your coordination, all these things so well that rock climbing comes easy-ish to you, maybe?
So here's the thing about rock climbing. Rock climbing is a type of sport where everybody kind of has to figure it out. You could have a 5'2" guy and a 5'9" girl, and they could be completely different. Both of them have both hands, both legs, can see, no disabilities at all, but they're going to climb the same route differently.
Yeah.
Why? Because they think about it differently. They could be the same height, same weight. They climb it differently because they just do. And I saw that at the rock climbing gym, and I already had built some muscle because of working out. And I saw that, and it was just, everything was a puzzle. It was doable. That was the beautiful thing about it. It was doable.
Well, and it's a puzzle there's not one perfect answer to your point. Yeah. So there's room for creativity. There's room for differences. There's room for uniqueness in this sport, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a truly adaptable sport.
That's great.
What I love.
Okay, you said the word stress, and it's one of my questions. So I'm going to ask you this. What stresses you out?
What stresses me out? Chemistry homework.
Me too. I was terrible at chemistry. It was my worst science class. But
I was randomly good at it, but there was so much homework.
okay, what else?
Let's see.
Do you get stressed before competition?
I feel like it's almost like a good anxious.
Okay.
I don't want to. It's stress,
Are you stressed about getting into college?
Not really.
Not yet. Okay, good.
Not
All
yet.
right. Hey, if you live a stress-free life, just say so.
I don't. I definitely don't. But I don't. It's more like I definitely feel like the pressure of like expectations.
Yeah.
I feel like I was straight A student until like COVID year, I was just an A B student because it was difficult. And I'm not an online learner, but I feel like I was always like intellectually and academically like well off.
Yep.
And so I feel like COVID specifically, it was very, very stressful for me.
Yeah.
To kind of almost see that fall. And I get that it didn't fall, but it was the type of thing where I felt like I could have done better and I had that potential, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
It was like I couldn't focus, like staring at a screen.
That's so hard. Yeah.
Trying to listen to your talk. I was like, what are you talking about?
You're in very good company. I think a lot of the kids had the same experience, and then the dishonest kids that cheated probably did better.
Yeah, no,
easier to cheat in the Zoom classroom.
Me out so much more.
Okay, give me your life philosophy.
I'm so sorry, I did not hear you. What?
Give me your life philosophy.
My life philosophy. That is a big question.
I know, but you've already dropped a bunch of nuggets along the way, so I think you just have to put a few of them together. You got it.
My life philosophy.
If you had one.
If I had. Okay. I feel like my life philosophy would be a mixture of like, I want to create change, but also be happy. Like, I feel like that would be maybe not necessarily together, but they're definitely up there. They're the two things that are like ever present on my mind.
Yep. That's great. You've listed some of them, but list your passions.
Rock climbing.
There's no room for anything else.
No, there's definitely room for everything else. But passions. When we talk about passions, I think that I have definitely a passion for just learning. Like just everything on this earth. I feel like I just consistently want to be a sponge that could be forever filled. I love learning about languages. I have a passion in language and culture. Since my parents are from Venezuela, I've definitely, I grew up eating arepas and listening to Spanish music in Spanish and learning how to dance. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really got into global cultures, the idea that I want to go into global cultures. And then you just kind of add a sprinkle in of that disability justice and social justice. Then it just kind of goes into what I want to do with my life.
That's great. Love it. Okay. Last question. What is your purpose?
What is my purpose? Oh, Lord. What is my purpose? I don't think we know. No, I don't know. I don't think we're meant.
It's okay if you don't know.
I have a feeling that this is just a feeling of mine. I have a feeling that humans are just not supposed to know their purpose.
Oh, I haven't heard this theory, so keep going.
I think it's the type of thing where you asked me what I wanted to look back on when I was 80 years old. And I think once you're 80 years old, I think then you can determine your purpose. I think at that point, then you can be this was what my life was about. And I don't think there's one sole purpose. I think there's a bunch of them because
I agree with you on that last part of it. So I don't think you have to know it all.
Yes.
I think that you should be in pursuit of purpose all the time throughout your life. And sometimes you might get it. Sometimes you might not get it. You might go one route and find another one. But I think that like this search, snuggling into it as close as you can is important just for happiness and many other purposes. But I agree. I don't think it's like, oh yeah. I mean, some people might have that they see that lifelong purpose. I think, but I think you're right. I think it can be chunked into little phases, because look at me. I was in the environment world for a long time, and then now I'm in disability, and who knows what the next stage is for me. But okay, great. All right. The way we wrap up the show is I give you the microphone. Say anything that comes to mind that maybe you haven't said, or you want to clarify, or shout outs, or whatever. The mic is yours.
Oh Lord, I don't know. I feel like I think we've covered a lot of things today. I'm really glad we've
just
covered.
Drop the mic then. If you're done, you're done. You can just drop it.
You might be done. Thank you for having me.
No, you've been a great guest. Before I wrap the show, what is the easiest way for our audience to follow your journey?
Oh, cool. So I have an Instagram. It's that asymmetrical girl, but with underscores in between. That asymmetrical girl. So just, yeah. And that's generally where I like post things about my rock climbing. I don't always post the videos where it's like, oh, this looks cool, or this is the highest grade, or this is like the hardest thing I've done. It's usually things that I really feel good about myself. And I definitely post on my stories, like where I am, what like training camp maybe I go to, stuff like that.
Great. That's perfect. So listen, to wrap the show up, it's been so wonderful to get to know you a little better. And I know you didn't really drop that, you sort of punted on the purpose and the philosophy. You gave us your philosophy. You gave us your approach to life, and it's wonderful and beautiful and amazing. Just thank you for your time today, sharing your soul with us. And for our audience, our next episode features adaptive athlete and entrepreneur Richard Dahl. You won't want to miss his story and his pursuit of excellence on the golf course. Just keep listening, everyone. Thank you so much.